Hello Internet! Today I'm going to show you how to make homemade fried chicken with bourbon barbecue sauce. Let's get to it. Now in my bowl right here I have chicken thighs that are boned out. So I took the bone, I took them out, and then I cut them in half so they cook faster in my pan. You can use chicken breast, you can use bone-in thighs, you can use whatever type of chicken you want to use. I just prefer the thighs, and I like the skin on the thighs because they crisp up better. So what you're going to do is take those and put them in buttermilk, not a specific amount of buttermilk, just enough to kind of coat them over, and leave it sitting for about a half an hour. So while that's sitting, we're going to get into making the barbecue sauce. Let's put this to our side, and we'll make our homemade barbecue sauce. Now, this is a very simple recipe, but I'm going to put a twist on it by adding some bourbon into it. This is Jim Beam with Red Stag. Okay, so in order to make that, we're going to need one 8 to 10 ounce bottle of steak sauce. This is just a great value brand. You can use A1. I wouldn't recommend using the Heinz 51 or 57, whatever it may be. I can't remember the name of it. I wouldn't use that. That's not the same thing. So you just pour this in here. Sometimes I'll add a little tiny dash of water in it and I'll shake it around if I want to get all of it out, but for this purpose we're not going to. 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. So for every 8 to 10 ounces of A1 sauce you put in, or steak sauce you put in, is 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. Okay, and then 1 cup of brown sugar. Light brown sugar, dark brown sugar, doesn't matter. I just have light brown sugar. Okay, and that is the base to the barbecue sauce. Mix this up. Try to get all the clumps out that you can. You don't have to be perfect. It's going to be put onto the stove and cook for a little bit of time anyway. Okay. So I'm going to put this on the stove on medium heat, and I'm going to let it simmer down until it comes to a little bit of a thicker consistency, and then right at the end, just long enough to burn off the alcohol, because I don't want alcoholic barbecue sauce. I just want the flavor from it. We'll add our Jim Beam in just long enough for it to burn off, and then it'll flavor it. So let's get this onto the stove, and then we'll come right back and we'll start making our breading for our chicken. Let's get to the stove. Okay, we're over at the stove now. I have this on a 5 on my smaller burner on my electric range top. So what I would suggest is you always would put a lid on it, because it always splatters all over and it makes a complete mess. So lid on it, and we'll let it come to a boil, and we'll turn it down to about a 4, so just a little bit lower, and then you let it sit for a duration of time, and we'll see how it turns out in about 20 minutes after. Okay, let's go over to the board and we'll make our breading. Okay, so now we're back over at the block. We're going to start making our breading for our chicken. Now, the breading doesn't have a specific amounts that you use. We use it more like scoops. So what we're going to do is add 3 scoops of flour to 1 scoop of cornmeal to 1 scoop of cornstarch. Okay. And then usually we use the yellow cornmeal. I don't have yellow cornmeal, so we're just using white. It'll be a lighter base than it would be if you use yellow. It'd be a darker color when you get done cooking it. So 1 scoop. 2 scoops. 3 scoops. Okay, so that's done with our flour. to 1 scoop of cornmeal. Cornstarch is kind of hard to get out of the bags without making a complete mess. To 1 scoop of cornmeal, or sorry, cornstarch. Now to my batter to make it a little more flavorful. Wow. I'm going to add a generous amount of salt. Now remember, you're not going to get all of these. It's not, you're using all the salt because it's not going to be on each piece of chicken that much. Now this is onion powder, granulated onion, and then granulated garlic. Now this is all to taste. If you wanted to put something else like paprika or anything like that in there, you could. So those are approximately about a tablespoon each. Oops, sorry. And then this is going to be our ground pepper. I would grind till you get approximately about a tablespoon of ground pepper as well. Okay. And then I'm just going to seal off my Ziploc bag. Give it a shake to get everything all mixed up. And my coating for my chicken is ready. So once the chicken is done setting, we'll take and put it in here and we'll get it into a pan with some oil. We'll be right back. Okay, so our barbecue sauce is now boiling, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it down to 3 and let it simmer there for probably another 10 more minutes. But in the process, what we're going to do is jump over to the other pan and we're going to start cooking our chicken, okay? So we have our oil in our pan. This is just regular vegetable oil, and it's probably, I want to say 3 inches deep. You can use a deep dish pan. You can use a smaller pan if you want to. You just would have to cook your chicken in smaller batches. So what we're going to do with our chicken that's been sitting in the buttermilk, we're just going to pull, oh, got the fan, just going to pull one out here, let it drip a little bit, put it in our batter, mix it around to get all nicely coated. And the reason why I do this inside of a plastic bag is so I can zip it up and throw it away in the trash and it doesn't smell from having all the chicken inside of it. Okay? Actually, what I'm going to do, to make it even easier on myself, I'm going to take a couple pieces. Now you can soak this in regular milk too, you don't have to. You can just use regular chicken thighs that are thawed out. It doesn't really matter. Just using buttermilk seems to keep the batter on a little bit better. Plus, for what I understand is buttermilk is kind of acidic, so it breaks down little pieces of the meat that hold itself together and it makes it a little juicier and tender. Not like you need a whole lot of that with chicken thighs. They tend to be relatively juicier than breast anyway. That's dirty. What I can do is this. Seal it up nice and tight. I usually grab the top just to make sure. Give it a shake. Go around, move it around. Get all the chicken's getting coated. Open it back up. Give it a little shake. There you go. Turn the heat up on that just slightly because the chicken's gonna make my grease temperature a bit lower. Alright, I'm trying to do this without making a complete mess over here on the side. piece of skin. I think that's it for chicken. Yep, that's it for chicken. Now this is only going to feed maybe 2, maybe 3 people, maybe like 2 adults and 1 child. But I don't cook a whole lot of it at one time because I don't want it to go to waste for one, and I'm pretty much the only one that's going to be eating this for a couple days. And now this chicken is going to cook for approximately 7 to 8 minutes. I usually cook them a little bit longer because I want to make sure it's completely done, and I usually go until they're actually really golden brown because I like extremely crispy skin. But always make sure if you're not sure that they're done, pull one out and use a thermometer to make sure it's red, and I believe it's 165 or 170 that chicken has to be cooked till. So while we're right here, we're going to pan over to our sauce, and we're going to pull the lid off here, and you know, thing because this pan lid's really hot. And as you can see, since the bubbling inside of it has gotten thicker than it was, it's not so runny. It's still going to be loose because obviously it's barbecue sauce. It's not meant to be like a gravy. But it coats my spoon a lot more than it did before. So, at this point is when I'm going to add my Jim Beam Red Stag. This has the black cherry infusion of bourbon whiskey in it. So we're going to add the entire bottle. So this is one of the sampler bottles that you can get. It is 50 milliliters. Put it in. And I'm going to let it sit here and cook off for about 5 minutes. Because I don't want, like I said before, I don't want this to be alcoholic. I just want to have the flavor of the bourbon in it and the cherry. So we'll let that cook for a little bit longer. Our chicken's cooking. And when the chicken is ready, I'll come back and I'll give you a shot of what it looks like. We're going to put the lid back on so it doesn't keep bubbling, or so it doesn't bubble all over, and we'll be right back. Okay, so our chicken has been sitting and cooking for about 9 minutes now. Our barbecue sauce on the side is already done because our bourbon's in it, and I turned that off a couple minutes ago just so it could sit. It didn't need to cook any longer. But that's basically what it looks like when your chicken's done. It's floating. When you push it down, it comes right back up. It's got a nice brown color to it. So we're going to take this out and plate it. Sometimes what I will do is I'll take this and we'll put it right in the barbecue sauce and then plate it. But I would ask your guests first whether they even want the barbecue sauce. Because if you put the barbecue sauce on this and then don't eat it and let it sit even overnight, your skin and your crispiness will be, it'll be gone. It won't even taste like fried chicken. So I would put it on when you go to use it, or use it as a dipping sauce. You could take and add a little bit of garlic salt on this, which actually enhances the flavor after, if you would like to, but I put salt inside the batter, so I really don't want to put too much salt on it. But that's what they look like. Golden, crispy fried chicken and homemade bourbon barbecue sauce. Okay, I hope you enjoyed. Smash that subscribe button, and if you want to know when we set out our next video, hit that bell icon. Have a good night.